audible? Yeah. A very good morning to all of you. So today I'll be taking you through some of the insights and use cases where you can use digital technologies, data sciences for enhancing customer experience. Now, in terms of my experience, it has been already mentioned. I am working for Indonesian e-commerce company. They are one of the largest e-grocery player in Indonesia, but till now not there in India. So maybe you have not heard about it. Before that, I worked for Disney, Sony, Target, Grab, few other companies, right? Now, coming to customer experience, so there has been some traditional method for understanding customer experience and how customers feel about it, right? You may have heard of surveys, NPS studies, brand health studies, some such kind of things, right? However, there has been a very good study by McKinsey, right, which find that traditional methods of understanding customer behavior and customer experience is kind of outdated in the digital era. Why so? So McKinsey pointed out 4 main reasons for that. Number one, it is limited, right? Means when you are doing a survey or study to find out customer experience or how customers are feeling, many a times based on the data, it is found that only 7% customer voice is captured, right? So if you have probably millions of customers, you cannot go to each and every one of them and ask them, hey, how do you feel about my product, services, pricing, offering, etc., right? So even if you do a large scale survey, probably, the data is saying that 5 to 7% customer voice is captured, right? How many of all the telecom companies or other companies reach out to all of us to understand that what are our pain points, right? So it's not possible for the company, but at the same time, you want to understand all the customers, right? So in that traditional era, it was not possible, right? But in the digital era, there is a possibility, but traditional method will not be suitable for it. Second main problem with that is it is reactive, right? So McKinsey study says only 30% CX leaders are confident that the issues are captured in real time. Means, so what happens in many of my companies where I work for, so whenever things are going okay, people are okay, right? They don't check with the customers what's happening or not, right? So whenever something goes wrong, there is a bad rating or review or sales are down, then you say, hey, let's do a market research, some study, talk to customer, find out what is happening, right? So it's kind of reactive. You don't know in real time or don't know in advance that what's the issues that can come up. Third main issue is that it is ambiguous, right? So whenever you use some survey or tool, your questions are limited, right? So you cannot understand exactly what is going on. Maybe some answer you get, but it may be ambiguous. And number 4, it is unfocused. Means you may ask certain question, for example, hey, how are you feeling? Or how is my pricing? Or how are our product offering? But how do you link it to marketing ROI, right? So the question can give you some insight, but it is not very focused and you cannot probably link it to marketing ROI. So that is where the data science, analytics, all these technologies can help us a lot, especially in the digital era. So how we can do that and what will be the key steps, right? So if you think about the traditional method, it's more based on survey, talking to people, FGD, such kind of thing, right? If you want to move to the digital era and you want to go to a data-driven customer experience process, then you have to think about these main steps, right? I can call them probably 4 Ds of data-driven customer experience. So first one will be the data foundation, right? So you need to have the foundation of data. Without that, of course, we cannot proceed to the next step, right? So you need to have some data, and I'll discuss a little bit on that what kind of data and how do you capture, how do you store, right? But foundation of it has to be data, right? So you have to have a foundation of data, and based on that, you can build a data-driven customer experience. Second, once you have the data, right, you need to use the data for decision making, right? So that's the next point, decisioning, right? So how do you mine the data, identify insight, and based on that take decision? Because if you just have the data, don't use it for decision, then it's not helpful. Third thing is that design, right? And design will become very important where you taste and learn things in an agile way, right? And basically you create a blueprint how based on the data foundation you built, based on that you decided what decisions are important, did some analysis or modeling. I'll come to some examples later. Based on that, you have to create a blueprint or design that how do you want to implement it across the organizations or function. And finally, distribution means how do you implement it, embed it in your existing system, right? So you may have your marketing team, sales team, other team working in a different manner. Now you have created a data foundation, some decision making, some design based on it, but how do you implement it so that you see the real value? Now coming to the first part, of course, it's a short session, so we'll not be able to get into detail of everything, but I'll try to give you, some highlight of this entire process. So in terms of first step, it should be a customer data lake or data warehouse, right? Because if your data is lying all across and it is not consolidated, right, you'll not be able to have a big picture, right? And that's the case with many companies who are adopting data technologies, because probably some data they have in a database, some data with some vendor, some data in Google Files, some data in Excel, right? So if you want to consolidate everything, it becomes very difficult. You talk to people, hey, can you give me this data? Comes in some Excel, some summary. You want to deep dive again, ask the analyst, hey, can you give me more deeper level data, right? So that is not the ideal if you're thinking for the long term, right? So first thing, before you jump into analysis, before you jump into data science or machine learning, those kind of fancy thing, think of a customer data lake, customer data warehouse, right? So what are the possible data we can collect here? As you can see on the screen, so you can, especially this particular slide is based on marketing, some use cases, but you can apply to other use cases, right? So if you are thinking of finance, HR, think that what data is important and how do I collect it. So in case of marketing and a lot of customer use cases, customer service use cases, we have a lot of demographic data, right? So age, gender, income, name, email ID, mobile, etc., right? Then you have behavioral data. So if people come to your website or app, how do they interact, right? Where do they click, which pages they go to, what if you're selling products, e-commerce website, then what are the products they are buying, how much time they're taking to buy, and all of that. Then you can also have engagement data, right? So if you have social media pages or website, not just ordering, but how people engage, right? Who like, share, comment, etc. And then also transactional data, that is very important. That's the bread and butter for most of the industries, right? So who bought what at what time, what product category, etc. And then of course you can capture something about mobile device, browser, those kind of things, that can be also very useful. And in terms of your channels, especially for marketing or sales, what are the channels you are using? Is it email, push, social media, mail, website, etc., right? So this is just to give you a glimpse that what kind of data you can get, but basically for your function, you will know what are the important things. Think about the data point and think, how do I consolidate into one data platform, right? Once you do that, we can go to the next step. So once, let's assume that we have the data foundation ready, right? I said that should be the first step. Once you have the data foundation, you can use this framework. This is a very popular framework by Gartner, where they say how do you evolve in your data science analytics journey, right? Where you should start and then how do you proceed. So in terms of the steps, the key 4 steps that Gartner mentioned about are descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. And ideally, we should go in that order because that will make sense. I'll give you an example why. So descriptive will tell you that what happened in the past. So let's take the use case of the sales that I mentioned, right? So first you need to understand what were my sales number over the past say 12 months by location, by demographic, by other factor, by different segment, right? Next, suppose your sales has dropped, right? So you want to go one level deeper to understand why it has dropped. Is it because I increased the prices, or is it because of competition? Because of what factor, right? That is diagnostic. Why something happened. Once you have done that, then you can move to the next 2 steps, which are predictive and prescriptive. This is where data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence, the advanced model become more handy, right? So here what we are trying to do in predictive, we are trying to say, okay, this is what happened in the past. This is why that happened. These are the factors. But then what will happen in the future, right? Maybe my sales has dropped, but maybe I'll do something, and what will be the value in future? So I can predict the future. This is where a lot of your machine learning use cases will come handy, right? And then finally prescriptive, where you don't stop just at predicting the future, because you may say, okay, sales was going down, so prediction is that it will go down further. But that's not what we want, right? What we want is finally to improve it. So then, you as the manager, you can ask your analyst, hey, I want to increase it by 10x or 2x or 30%. Then what are the things should I do, right? And has to come back with a recommendation or a model which will tell in real time that what should be done in future, right? What are the recommended steps or actions? I'll give you an example and use cases later, which will make it more relevant and easy to understand. Now coming to the customer lifecycle, because we are trying to relate this concept to customer journey and customer lifecycle. The way I would like to look at it, right? So when customer first comes to your website or app or calls your call center, that is reach, right? So you reach the customer or customer reaches you. Then acquisition, maybe they register or they do something, right? So that you get their information. So basically, we call it customer acquisition. But they have not bought anything yet or done any transaction, right? So next step will be conversion. Means you acquire the customer, but how do you convert? Means when they start paying you money. And this can be applied to both B2C and B2B. And then once you have converted a customer, it's not enough, right? Because you run some promo, give some voucher, customer comes, does the transaction, but they drop out in the next month or go to the computer, right? So you have to retain the customers. The customer retention is extremely critical, right? And that's a problem with a lot of e-commerce app and unicorn companies because they acquire customer at a high cost, but then they are not able to retain them. And once you have retained them, also it's about the loyalty and evangelism, right? So basically, they become your loyal customer, and not only that, they go and talk to other people about your product or brand, spread positive word of mouth. That helps your company and the brand. So let's try to link our concept that we learned in terms of the data steps, the analytics steps, that descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, prescriptive with the customer life cycle. And let us use some use cases, real use cases, right? So this is an example of descriptive and how you can do it, right? You know, one of the easy use case or example will be like if you are having a website or app and if you are using Google Analytics, right? So this is a screenshot I took from, you know, one of my websites where I was using Google Analytics, right? So here, what can we do? We can analyze the past data. And if you want, you can download the data and tell some analyst to put it in Tableau or Power BI or something and do similar kind of analysis. But basically, we can understand what happened in the past. So what happened in the past, I know how many sessions, how much traffic, what are the sources of traffic if you see on the left side here, right? So you can say it is coming from organic search or social media or referral, right, which is the source of the traffic. Then how is it working? Means you got the session, but then how many of them new, how many of them old? What is their behavior, right? So how was the bounce rate or page views, etc. And then what is the conversion? So in Google Analytics, you can also tag that, you know, entire funnel, right? So customer come to website, go to product page, then buy some product, how much value product they bought, right? So from customer traffic to product view to probably checkout to payment and final order, right? So you can create an entire funnel and track it that how it is going, right? But this is basically telling you descriptive, means what happened in the past. But using this, you can also do some diagnostic. For example, say your traffic drop, right? So this actually happened for my company some days back, and the CEO asked, "Hey Angshu, what happened? That traffic, the order is dropping. What is going on, right?" So we refer to similar kind of data, but then you can say, "Hey, is it because traffic is dropping? That is a different problem then, right? Or maybe traffic is same, but the conversion is dropping. Then it is a different thing. Or is it an issue in the app? Or is it an issue in the payment, right?" So data remains same, but you have to deep dive a bit more that where the issues are, right? So a lot of thinking and analysis has to go along with the descriptive data. That is when we have the diagnostic. But this is very helpful for most of the digital companies or even older companies because you can understand where the issues are and what happened in the past. And I'm sure at least descriptive part, maybe you are not using this kind of tool, but you are using in some other format, maybe in Excel or some other way or email that, you know, okay, what has been my sales in the past, what is going on, what is prices, etc. Now coming to the second use case that I want to use, this is one actual use case that I have worked on and my team has worked on, which is I mentioned that once you have the customer and they have converted, retention is very important, right? And the other side of the retention is what we call churn, right? Means if you retain the customer, then it is retention. If they leave you, that is churn, right? But the problem with churn is that you cannot just do descriptive diagnostic, because what will happen if you do descriptive diagnostic, it will tell you, hey, I had this customer, he has left, right? And maybe you can do the analysis after 1-2 months, and by that time customer has left and gone to your computer, right? So it doesn't help you, right? So if you know after it has happened, after customer has left and gone to the computer, it's very difficult to get them back, right? So here we have to kind of predict. We have to predict in advance that which are the customer likely to leave and why they might leave, so that you can take a preventive action, right? So don't wait for your customers to leave you, right? But here you cannot use the other, you know, methodologies that I mentioned, just analyzing the past data, right? Because past data is not telling who is going to leave. And this is where you need predictive analytics. This is one of the best use cases probably for machine learning, right? So how the process basically works, probably many of you who are into machine learning and data science know it very well. But in general, basically, we have the historical data, right? Say in the past, who are the people who stayed with us, who are the people who left, what are their behavior, what are the factor. Then based on that, basically in summary, we train a machine learning model to predict that based on the feature past data of the customer, can I predict in next month which customers might leave, right? And this can be used not just for marketing, but let's take some of you are in HR, right? And you have the data about the employees about the past, right? From interview to their behavior, everything. And you want to predict which employees are likely to leave, right? So you can use exactly same model and methodology to do that as well. And how the model will work finally in the system, basically you have the model that I mentioned. We create a machine learning model using the past data. You train the model, you check the performance, then you can basically, that is not enough, right? Because the model will tell these people may leave, right? Then you have to do some segmentation to find out that out of these people who are more valuable, right? Maybe you don't want to retain everybody. If the customer is not good, you may let them leave. So you can do some segmentation that based on promo sensitive customer, valuable customer, loyal customer, etc., right? Then you can run targeted campaign, right? So if I, for example, just do a 2 by 2 matrix, right? So I say, okay, high probability of churn, low probability of churn, and high LTV or value customer, low value customer, right? So maybe I can run a different campaign for high LTV, high value customer, because for them I want to retain them and increase their LTV, right? Whereas if probably somebody is high value but low probability of churn, then I don't want to give them any discount voucher, just some communication that, hey, how are you feeling, continue with my product. So you can do different segment and run targeted marketing campaign. If you are using Salesforce, that's very good to run these campaigns, right? So data output comes from machine learning. You add it to the segment, then the segments go to Google, Facebook, CRM platform, and you can run targeted campaign, promotions, voucher, whatever you want. And finally, that's not enough. Once you run these campaign models and the campaigns, you need to track the results, check the performance. You can use experiment design and A/B test to do that. And based on that, fine tune your model as well as your strategy and the actions. So this is a very interesting use case for churn and retention, but you can apply it to anywhere when you are trying to predict something in future, right? Be it the future sales, be it people will leave or not, be it a customer or employee. Now coming to the final use case, how much time we have? Okay, so we can take a lot of questions later. Any questions till now? Any questions from anyone? No? Okay, we can take that. Yes, sir, please. Maybe you can tell your name and then go ahead. Yes.
Just one question related to, since we are going into the cookieless world now, right?
Cookieless.
Cookieless world. So how are we going to tackle that? Are you already tackling that?
Okay. So cookie is one way to capture some of the data, right? But like, so it depends on what company you are and what you are using, right? So for example, in my use cases that I can mention about, so Sayurbox has one of the largest, as I said, e-commerce platform in Indonesia. Grab also was one of the largest ride-sharing food delivery platform, right? For Sony, we have an Indian app called Sony Live, right? So which is also an OTT app. And Disney also I work for, which has Hotstar, which is also kind of OTT, right? So for this platform, the cookie is not a challenge because we own the app, right? So if you own the app, you capture all the data, right? The moment customer register, you capture it. Moment customer is going to your app, you capture when customer came, right? I cannot talk about all the data, but maybe for one of the companies I work for, there you could even track that if you are sitting there, right? Because you are carrying your phone and you capture the location data. I know this is exactly location you are sitting now, and I know which is probably your home location based on your travel history, right? And I know what kind of food you buy or you like, maybe Indian on weekdays and Chinese on weekend, right? So if you own the app and website, very easily you can track all the data. So of course, I think if you're not doing that and if you're using say Google Analytics or something else to track the things, right? Of course, there will be some challenges. I think for Asian countries, say India and Indonesia, laws are still better. Still, I think it's not as strict. So still we can capture a lot of data. But if you talk about Singapore or Europe, yes, it becomes more difficult. You have the GDPR. So please check the laws as well, right? And of course, if we cannot capture the data, it will not be as rich. But then you have to think of some proxies. So to give you an example, for example, one data you all would like to know, which is probably maybe gender and income, right? So one of the companies I work for, we did not have the gender data, right? But we wanted to do some segmentation or modeling where we want to put gender as a factor. So what we did is we created a model to predict the gender of the person, right? So we had some data based on the name, email, and other behavior, what is the gender of the people, right? And there are online databases which also give some of this data for different countries. And then we train the model and tune for our own database. And based on that, we created a model. Of course, it was not 100% accurate, 90% accurate, but still we could get some idea that, hey, this person is probably a male with this probability, right? And similarly for income, you may not get directly income data, right? But for one of the companies I work for, what we did is we could capture the device data, say iOS, Android, and we could also find what is the device, right? Maybe Samsung Note this version, right? So based on the device, location, and few other things, you can probably create a proxy of income, right? So if you are staying at a particular location and using certain kind of device, probably you are in the high income, category. So I think there will be a challenge going forward because of this laws. Europe, Singapore, some of the advanced countries more difficult. I said India kindly is probably a bit easier. But for future, when you can't get such data that you are looking for, I think you have to be innovative and find out ways to find a proxy or create another model to predict the variable that you are looking for. Did I answer your question? Yeah. Any other question till now? Otherwise, we'll take some more question at the end. Yeah. Okay, so this was the machine learning predictive analytics use case I use for churn prediction. Now coming to something more interesting, and this is the area I have been working a lot for. In fact, this is the area we have published a lot of papers and 3 US patents, so which is recommendation. And this is very fascinating and I think very close to my heart. Why? I think if you think about it, right, a lot of things that nowadays you are doing is actually recommendation. Right? So we are not going behind it and checking the algorithm. Let me give an example, right? So how many of you use Facebook? Oh, only so many, not rest of you. So what are you using? Instagram? Not also. Okay, LinkedIn. This is a professional audience, is it? Oh my God. Wow. So this is really great. I thought most people use Facebook or Insta or Snapchat nowadays, but great. So all of you use LinkedIn, right? So I also use LinkedIn very heavily. But yeah, be it Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, right? One of the core components, right? Once you go to LinkedIn homepage, right? What do you see? And that is, I think, one of the reasons LinkedIn became so popular over the last few years. In fact, 5 years back, LinkedIn didn't have this feature, right? What is it? Somebody said there. Newsfeed, right? So that is one of the very key feature, because otherwise LinkedIn was just like probably old day Orkut or something like that, right? So you just have profile and you can write recommendation and everybody recommends each other, right? That's the only thing you could do. But with the news feed, right, you don't have to go and search for some profile. You just go, it presents you that this is the story, this is the news, and this is the update with your network, right? And you check the notification and the news feed. Both are coming from recommendation, right? So if you think of Facebook, newsfeed. If you think of Instagram, newsfeed. If you think about Twitter, newsfeed, right? Every platform that you are using, most of them, even if you go to Amazon, right, one product you try to buy, they say other people bought this product similar to this. Maybe you didn't want to buy 10 products, you wanted to buy only one, but they showed you such good recommendation, you end up buying more. You go to Netflix, right, you want to watch only one movie, right? You just go and watch and they say, hey, this is other things that you may like, right? You go to YouTube, you watch one song, this is the other song you may like, other movies you may like, right? So we may not realize what is running behind them, but all the things I mentioned here, all are examples of recommendation. And why it is becoming very critical? Because once you go to the online world, right, we want to find information, we want to find content, we want to find products, right? So this is what we call discovery, means you find something. And there are only two main ways using which you can find it. It was different in Web 1.0 world where it was fixed, right? You go to a website, you just see the same thing. Everybody sees the same thing, right? It doesn't change based on you. But in the Web 2.0 world, which is more interactive, personalized, there are two ways you can find anything, be it content, product, experiences, services, etc. One is search, right? You go and type something. Example, Google, right? So you go and type. But you work on search when you know something. You have an intent. You want to search something specific. So you go and search, right? That is one part you can find something. The other way, that we are all lazy, right? We don't want to always go and think and search, right? It's easier if things come to us, right? And I think people will become more and more lazy over a period of time with the help of technology, right? We order food at home, right? We watch content on Netflix, right? We don't want to go anywhere, right? Just because this is an offline event, I think after a long time you are coming together in offline meet, right? But basically what I'm trying to say is in the online world, there is two ways you can get any information or content. One is search, which is active, means you think about something, you have an intent, you go and search for it. Only other way you can find anything is recommendation, means the platform decides what should be shown to you. And the beauty of recommendation as well as search is also getting personalized nowadays, but recommendation can be even more personalized, right? Moment you get more data with the customer, moment you get the behavior, you can start personalizing the experience, right? And recommendation is going to become more and more relevant. Like if you can think about it, probably you're spending 8 hours on your mobile or 5 hours on your mobile, and if you actually analyze, probably 3-4 hours of that is going consuming some recommendation from some website or buying some product based on some recommendation, right? So you're consuming content, you're consuming information, you're buying product based on recommendation. That is gonna become more and more prevalent. This is an area I have been working very closely on for a long time. So in terms of recommendation, application I've mentioned here, like you want to buy something, you want to buy a phone, you go to Amazon, they recommend you something. You want to like or listen to a song, you go to Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, you go and search something, but then you start watching and they recommend you. You want to watch a movie on Netflix, they recommend you. You want to buy a camera, again, go to website, they recommend you, right? So how recommendation system works, there are primarily three kind of data you need. One is user profile data, right? That this is the user ID, this is the user maybe gender, age, income if you can get. If not, whatever information you can get about the user. So that is the master user profile. So this will look like all the user IDs in the row and the data about the user in the columns. The second bit of information you need is about the item. What is an item? So in case of movie, it is a movie or the content, right? In case of product or e-commerce, is the products, right? So you only have a master data with the product. So these are my products. These are the feature of the product: the price, size, color, blah blah blah. And in case of movie, of course, actor, director, rating, etc. And there is a third data you need, which is the interaction data, behavior data, means how users are interacting with the content of the item. In case of e-commerce, what they search, what they click, what they bought. In case of content, what they clicked, what they watched, such kind of data. And once you combine these data, you can create a recommendation system. So of course, this is not a session on recommendations. Of course, I will not be able to get into a lot of technical details, but there are few algorithms you can consider if you are looking into it. There is overall some popularity based algorithms which are easier to create, more statistical in nature, right? So if you find trending item or popular item, those are a bit easy to do. Second step can be you can try to make it segment based on male, female, gender, etc. Again, not very difficult to do. Without a data scientist also you can do this. Next step, you can think of some collaborative filtering algorithms. I'm sure some of you or maybe most of you have heard of it. So these are very useful algorithm for recommendation. And if you have heard of Netflix price, right, there they use some combination of collaborative filtering with some other algorithms, right? So in case of collaborative filtering, you give the data of interaction of user and item, and based on that, suppose I have watched some content, another person here has watched some content, and we are similar, and I have watched some new content, 5 other content, then that can be recommended to the user. So it can be applied on item level, user level. So if you're interested, you can check more. But collaborative filtering is another interesting algorithm. And if you're thinking of a state of art going there, so the papers that we published or the patents that we worked on, some of them are using more advanced algorithms where we are not just taking interaction data or numeric data or text data, but you can take multimodal data. Means multimodal means you can take number, you can take text, you can take image, you can take video, audio, right? All modalities of data, you can now fuse it together, using a neural network, and then you can use that multimodal data to create recommendation, which can be even more powerful. Yeah. Okay, so basically in summary, I discuss about overall why customer-driven experiences, data-driven customer experience is important. Then I said 4 steps. First is data foundation, then decisioning, then design, then distribution. Then I talked about the 4 steps of analytics: descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. And I discussed few use cases which is relevant in the industry, that from Google Analytics to churn prediction to finally recommendation is an example of prescriptive, because you are actually prescribing what content or product should be shown to the customer. No manual intervention will be needed if the algorithm is implemented. So with that, I'll end my presentation, and if we have time and some question, we can take some questions.
I am really sorry.
Okay.
We are
Sure,
running
sure.
late.
Thank you.
So